Before we dive in, I've got a quick question for you. Where are you watching from right now, and what time is it? Drop it in the comments. I love seeing how far and wide our viewers are tuning in. Now, imagine this. Sung Jin-Woo, the calculating, suddenly enters the Invincible Universe. What happens next? Let's find out. The first thing Jin-Woo feels isn't mana, or the familiar pull of a dungeon. It's weight. The kind that presses down on a world where power doesn't reset after the battle ends. Cities here don't magically repair themselves. Heroes bleed, bones snap, and when someone dies, they stay dead. Jin-Woo steps into a skyline already scarred by superhuman clashes, cracked concrete still warm from the last fight, civilians screaming instead of NPCs waiting to be rescued. This world doesn't pause to admire strength. It punishes it. From the shadows of a half-collapsed building, Jin-Woo watches a hero crash through 3 floors below, coughing blood, teeth shattered. No announcer, no victory screen, just consequences. He immediately understands something critical. This universe doesn't celebrate power unless it can survive the aftermath. Strength here isn't about dominance. It's about endurance, about how much damage you can take and still stand. As sirens echo through the streets, Jin-Woo studies the heroes who arrive late, the villains who flee without speeches, and the terrified civilians caught in between. There's no balance system here, no invisible hand making sure fights stay fair. The strong don't just win, they traumatize the world around them, and that unsettles even him. Because for the first time since becoming the Shadow Monarch, Jin-Woo senses a place where raw physical force rivals divine authority. He tests the air subtly, releasing a thread of shadow. It responds, but weakly, unfamiliar, as if the world itself resists being claimed. This universe wasn't built for magic kings. It was built for violence that evolves biologically, not mystically. And yet, death still lingers everywhere, fresh, untamed, waiting. Jin-Woo doesn't reveal himself. He never does. Instead, he watches news footage flicker across shattered screens. Names like Guardians of the Globe, whispered with reverence and fear. He hears one name repeated more than the others, Nolan. The tone changes when people say it, respect mixed with something darker, something instinctive. Jin-Woo's lips curl into a faint, unreadable smile. A world where power comes with consequences isn't a deterrent to him. It's an invitation. Because if this universe is built on irreversible damage, then every battle will only leave behind more shadows for him to claim. The more Jin-Woo observes, the clearer the pattern becomes. Heroes here aren't symbols, they're liabilities. Every punch thrown risks collapsing a building. Every missed blow costs lives. Power isn't hidden in dungeons or sealed behind systems. It walks openly among civilians, pretending to protect them while quietly endangering them. Jin-Woo watches emergency crews pull bodies from rubble left behind by a battle no one officially lost. In his world, such destruction would have triggered quests, compensation, explanations. Here, it triggers funerals. A sudden shockwave ripples through the city. Far away, the sky briefly fractures with motion too fast for human eyes. Jin-Woo doesn't need to see the fight to understand its scale. His instincts sharpen, shadows tightening at his feet. That wasn't magic, that wasn't technique, that was pure, overwhelming physical supremacy. The kind that doesn't negotiate with reality, it overwrites it. And for the first time, Jin-Woo feels something unfamiliar creep into his calculations. Caution. He retreats deeper into the dark, perching atop a ruined overpass as helicopters roar overhead. From this vantage point, he studies Mark Grayson for the first time. Young, reckless, powerful, and painfully human. Jin-Woo recognizes the look immediately. It's the expression of someone given power before understanding its cost. Mark crashes into the ground during a fight, gets back up anyway, bloodied but defiant. The crowd cheers. Jin-Woo doesn't. He's seen this story before. It always ends the same way, with scars that never heal. Jin-Woo begins running simulations in his mind. Viltrumite strength, human fragility, a planet caught in between. This isn't a dungeon to be cleared. It's a slow-burning war zone disguised as a superhero narrative. And unlike monarchs or rulers, these beings don't announce conquest. They normalize it. They let the world adapt to their presence until resistance feels pointless. As night falls, Jin-Woo descends into the city streets, passing murals of fallen heroes already being defaced by graffiti. Memorials fade quickly here. Even legends don't last long. He pauses near a bloodstain that no rain has washed away yet. Kneeling, he places a gloved hand near it, testing the boundary once more. The shadow responds stronger this time, not obedient but curious. A low breath escapes him. This world may reject magic, but it cannot deny death. And death, Jin-Woo knows better than anyone, is universal. He rises, cloak dissolving into the darkness behind him. The Shadow Monarch doesn't need to conquer this universe today, not tomorrow either. This world will create its own dead soon enough. All Jin-Woo has to do is wait. The waiting doesn't take long. In the Invincible Universe, catastrophe has a schedule. Jin-Woo senses it before he sees it, the tremor in the ground, the sudden silence of traffic, the way shadows stretch unnaturally as if bracing for impact. Then it happens. A battle erupts several blocks away, violent enough to bend the skyline. Jin-Woo doesn't rush toward it. He moves laterally, positioning himself where the aftermath will spill, where consequences always land. The fight is brutal and fast. A villain is reduced to pulp against a concrete wall. A hero wins, but barely. Jin-Woo watches the victor stagger away, victorious yet hollow, leaving behind destruction they won't clean up. Medics arrive too late for some. Screams echo, cameras roll, and Jin-Woo sees it clearly now. This world turns trauma into entertainment, then moves on. He slips through the chaos unseen, eyes sharp, senses expanded. The air here carries no mana, yet it's thick with something else: fear, regret, unfinished lives. His shadows ripple faintly, adjusting, learning. This universe has different rules, but it still obeys one absolute law: death leaves a mark. And those marks are everywhere. Jin-Woo's mind returns to Nolan. The name lingers like a pressure point. Whatever he felt earlier wasn't just strength, it was dominance refined over centuries. A being who doesn't fight to prove himself, but to enforce inevitability. Jin-Woo has faced gods, monarchs, and absolutes before. But this is different. Viltrumite power isn't symbolic, it's imperial. And empires don't fall from single blows. He pauses atop a skyscraper overlooking a city that refuses to sleep despite everything it's lost. Lights flicker on in broken apartments. Life continues, not because it's safe, but because stopping would mean surrender. Jin-Woo respects that. He understands it. Survival isn't hope. It's defiance. For a moment, he considers revealing himself, a dramatic entrance, a statement. But that would be inefficient. In this world, spectacle attracts gods, and gods attract wars before preparation is complete. Jin-Woo has no interest in being studied, dissected, or labeled another unknown variable. He learned long ago that the deadliest forces are the ones history only notices too late. Instead, he turns inward, testing the limits of his authority here. His shadow soldiers remain dormant for now, but the connection is stabilizing, weak at first, then clearer. This universe may resist him, but resistance can be worn down, especially when it bleeds as much as this one does. As dawn approaches, Jin-Woo fades back into obscurity. Just another rumor in a city full of them. Heroes will wake up sore. Villains will plan their next move. The world will call itself protected. But somewhere between those fragile assumptions, something fundamental has changed. Because in a universe where power always leaves consequences behind, a king who turns consequences into weapons has just arrived. Morning breaks without ceremony. The sun rises over a city pretending nothing happened, painting light over cracked roads, boarded windows, and memorial flowers already wilting on sidewalks. Jin-Woo watches it all from the edge of a rooftop, coat unmoving despite the wind. This world heals on the surface and rots underneath. He's seen that pattern before. Civilizations don't fall when they're destroyed. They fall when they convince themselves destruction is normal. News broadcasts flicker across nearby screens mounted on buildings. The anchors speak with forced calm, replaying slowed-down footage of last night's battle. Casualties reduced to numbers, damage estimates scrolling neatly at the bottom. Jin-Woo studies the frame where a civilian disappears under falling debris, the clip cutting away a second too early. Power here isn't just physical, it's editorial. Control the narrative, and the world keeps functioning. A sudden pressure ripples through the air, not an attack, a presence. Jin-Woo doesn't turn immediately. He doesn't need to. High above the city, a red and white streak hangs motionless against the sky for a fraction of a second, watching, measuring. Nolan doesn't descend. He doesn't have to. That single pause tells Jin-Woo everything. This planet is already under surveillance, not protected, claimed. For the first time since arriving, Jin-Woo's expression hardens. This isn't a world slowly drifting toward ruin. It's one being evaluated for it. He withdraws further into the city, slipping through crowds that never notice him, passing people who argue about heroes like they're sports teams. Some worship them, some hate them. None of them understand how small they are in the larger calculation. Jin-Woo recognizes that ignorance. It's the same blindness his own world once had before the gates appeared. He stops in an alley where a cracked mural depicts a fallen guardian, halo painted above their head by someone who needed to believe the sacrifice meant something. Jin-Woo studies it quietly. In his world, death is a resource. Here, it's a warning. And warnings, when ignored, become extinction events. A decision settles in him. Not dramatic, not emotional, just inevitable. This universe doesn't need a savior. It needs balance. And balance sometimes requires something darker than heroes. As the shadows stretch at his feet, responding more naturally now, Jin-Woo steps forward and disappears into the crowd, leaving behind no evidence he was ever there. But the weight he brought with him remains, pressing invisibly against the world. Because from this moment on, every battle in the Invincible Universe will leave behind more than rubble. It will leave behind something to watch. Jin-Woo doesn't enter the world of heroes the way others do, through headlines, interviews, or public battles. He enters it through absence, through blind spots, through moments no camera captures. While Earth's strongest heroes clash in daylight, Jin-Woo moves at the edges of their conflicts, studying the rhythm of their violence like a strategist memorizing an enemy's breathing pattern. The guardians of the globe assembled in a gleaming headquarters that looks more like a symbol than a fortress. Jin-Woo watches from a shadow cast by a satellite dish miles away, senses stretched far beyond human perception. These aren't monarchs, they aren't kings, they're specialists, each powerful in a narrow way, each dependent on the others to survive. Teamwork compensates for imbalance. Jin-Woo catalogs it all without judgment. Synergy is useful. Dependence is exploitable. He observes their training sessions, noting how often they rely on trust rather than preparation. Their reactions are fast, but rehearsed. Their confidence comes from years without true consequence. Jin-Woo has seen what happens to warriors who mistake routine for readiness. The shadows at his feet pulse softly, responding to his thoughts, mimicking the movements he studies. Then Nolan arrives. The atmosphere changes instantly. Jin-Woo doesn't need heightened senses to feel it. Every shadow in the city tightens as if bracing. Nolan doesn't posture. He doesn't perform. He stands among them like gravity given form. The guardians laugh, speak, relax. Jin-Woo sees what they don't. This isn't camaraderie. It's containment. A lion among dogs who haven't realized the cage door is open. Jin-Woo focuses on Nolan carefully, peeling back layers of motion, force, restraint. The Viltrumite doesn't move like someone conserving energy. He moves like someone limiting collateral damage. That distinction matters. Nolan isn't showing his strength because he doesn't need to. and that makes him infinitely more dangerous than any villain Jin-Woo has faced before. From another vantage point, Jin-Woo watches Mark Grayson struggle through his early battles, raw power erupting without control, mistakes costing real lives. Mark fights like someone desperate to prove he belongs. Jin-Woo recognizes that desperation. It's the same fire that once drove him into dungeons he wasn't ready to clear. The difference is, Mark was born into power. Jin-Woo earned his through death. As battles end and heroes retreat, Jin-Woo lingers where they don't, counting the cracks in the ground, the bodies covered by sheets, the way shadows cling longer to places where someone died violently. Earth's strongest heroes think they're protecting the world. They don't realize they're being watched by something far more patient. The more Jin-Woo observes them, the more the illusion fractures. Heroes here aren't forged by war. They're polished by repetition. Their victories have conditioned them to expect survival. Even their failures are cushioned by recovery teams, public relations, and second chances. Jin-Woo watches how quickly they reset after the disaster, how easily guilt is diluted by the promise of next time. In his world, next time was never guaranteed. He follows them into battles against lesser threats, criminals, enhanced humans, alien remnants, fights designed to reaffirm dominance rather than test limits. Jin-Woo notes the pattern. Overwhelming force applied quickly, minimum analysis, maximum spectacle. It works because the opposition is weak. But systems built on weak enemies collapse when confronted with something patient and cruel. From a rooftop across the street, Jin-Woo watches as a villain is subdued, not killed. Applause erupts, cameras flash, the hero smiles through bloodied lips. Jin-Woo looks past all of it, focusing on the shadow beneath the villain's body as it's hauled away. It twitches, not alive, but unsettled. Death here doesn't always come clean. Sometimes it hesitates. He tests that boundary for the first time. The moment is subtle, barely a ripple. As the villain flatlines in the ambulance, Jin-Woo reaches through the thinning veil. The shadow resists, unfamiliar with command, heavy with this world's defiance. Then it yields. Just a fraction. Enough for Jin-Woo to feel the truth settle into place. It works. Not cleanly, not easily. But death still answers. Jin-Woo withdraws instantly, severing the connection before anyone can sense the anomaly. His heart rate doesn't change. His expression doesn't either. But internally, the implications unfold rapidly. If shadows can be claimed here, even imperfectly, then the greatest weakness of this universe has just become its greatest liability. Above him, Nolan passes through the sky again, a red streak cutting clouds apart. Jin-Woo tracks the trajectory, estimating speed, force, atmospheric displacement. Nolan isn't patrolling. He's surveying, mapping. Jin-Woo understands that behavior well. That's not a protector's habit. That's an occupier. Elsewhere, Mark collapses after a brutal fight, medics rushing in. Jin-Woo watches from afar, unreadable. Mark survives, barely. The world cheers again. Jin-Woo doesn't. Survival without understanding only delays tragedy. As night returns, Jin-Woo positions himself closer to the heroes now, threading his presence between their blind spots. His shadows grow steadier, more obedient, adapting to the physics of this world. Earth's strongest heroes believe they're standing at the top of the food chain. They haven't realized something else has begun hunting from below. Jin-Woo starts narrowing his focus. Observation alone is no longer enough. Patterns have become predictions. He watches the Guardians' response times, how quickly they mobilize, who hesitates, and who charges in without thinking. In every team, there is always one constant: overconfidence born from familiarity. They fought together so long that they assume survival is mutual. Jin-Woo knows better. Unity collapses the moment fear becomes personal. He follows them into space once, hidden within the shadow of a departing vessel, feeling the strain of an environment that should reject him. Even here, the heroes rely on Nolan to anchor the mission, to be the immovable point around which everything else orbits. Jin-Woo files that away, remove the anchor, and the structure fails. Back on Earth, Jin-Woo watches the aftermath more closely than the fights themselves. Hospitals overflow. Survivors stare into nothing. Families wait for bodies that won't come back whole. This world calls these costs acceptable. Jin-Woo calls them fuel. The shadows deepen around places soaked in grief, responding more readily now, less resistant. The universe is learning his presence the same way prey learns a predator's scent. Too late to avoid it. Mark Grayson becomes the variable Jin-Woo watches most carefully. Mark trains harder after every loss, pushes himself past exhaustion, breaks bones and heals them again, faster each time. But Jin-Woo notices the cracks forming beneath the improvement. Rage, doubt, confusion. Power without direction erodes the soul faster than weakness ever could. Jin-Woo has lived through that erosion. He knows where it leads. During one late-night patrol, Mark hovers above a damaged neighborhood, staring at the ruins he failed to prevent. Jin-Woo stands below, unseen, close enough to hear Mark's breathing hitch. For a moment, Jin-Woo considers stepping forward. Not as an enemy, not as an ally, as a warning. He doesn't. Not yet. Because Nolan is moving again. This time, Jin-Woo feels it before it happens. A shift, subtle but decisive. Nolan isn't just observing now. He's testing boundaries, pushing harder, responding to threats with unnecessary force. The Guardians don't question it. They rationalize it. That trust, Jin-Woo realizes, will be their undoing. From the darkness, Jin-Woo allows a thin smile. Not from satisfaction, but recognition. The strongest heroes on Earth are standing on a fault line, unaware that the pressure beneath them is already reaching its limit. And when it breaks, Jin-Woo intends to be there, watching, waiting, and ready to claim what falls. The breaking point doesn't announce itself with alarms. It never does. It arrives quietly, disguised as routine. Jin-Woo senses it during a standard Guardians briefing. Voices calm, plans familiar, confidence unshaken. From a shadow folded into the corner of the room, he watches their body language betray them. No one here is preparing for betrayal. No one ever does. Nolan stands apart from the others, arms crossed, listening more than he speaks. Jin-Woo studies him with renewed intensity now, mapping not just strength, but intent. There's no hesitation in Nolan's posture, no internal conflict. Whatever decision he's made, it's already settled. Jin-Woo recognizes that stillness. It's the calm of someone who has accepted mass death as a necessary step. When the massacre begins, it happens too fast for heroics. Jin-Woo doesn't interfere. He watches. The Guardians fall one by one, their teamwork unraveling instantly against overwhelming force. Strategies collapse. Trust becomes a shock. Strength proves meaningless when the enemy doesn't care about restraint. Blood stains the floor where ideals once stood. Jin-Woo observes every movement, every kill, imprinting the brutality into memory. This is what true dominance looks like in this universe. Absolute, merciless, final. Shadows surge violently, drawn to the sudden flood of death. Jin-Woo holds them back with effort, maintaining control as the room becomes a grave. Claiming them now would reveal him. It would be premature. Patience costs him, but patience has always been his greatest weapon. When it's over, Nolan stands alone among the bodies, breathing steadily, untouched. Jin-Woo feels the weight of it settle over the planet like a funeral shroud. This isn't a villain's reveal. It's an empire tightening its grip. Jin-Woo withdraws as alarms finally begin to scream, slipping through cracks in reality no one thinks to watch. The world will mourn its heroes. Mark will shatter when he learns the truth, and Earth will lose its illusion of safety forever. From a rooftop miles away, Jin-Woo looks out over a city about to enter its darkest era. The shadows at his feet writhe, restless now, fully awakened by what they've witnessed. Earth's strongest heroes are gone, and something far worse has been paying attention the entire time. The world doesn't end when the Guardians die. It fractures, slowly, quietly. Jin-Woo feels the shift ripple across the planet like a pressure change before a storm. Governments scramble. Military posture. Heroes disappear from the skies one by one, suddenly aware that whatever killed the Guardians is still out there, and stronger than all of them combined. Jin-Woo watches the panic spread, not with satisfaction, but with clarity. This is what happens when a world realizes it was never in control. Nolan doesn't hide. He doesn't need to. His presence becomes heavier now, more deliberate, as if Earth itself has already been weighed and found lacking. Jin-Woo tracks him across continents, through the shockwaves he leaves behind, through the silence that follows his interventions. Every encounter reinforces the same conclusion. Viltrumite strength isn't just superior, it's systemic. Built for conquest, designed to erase resistance over time, not in a single spectacle. Jin-Woo stops thinking of Nolan as an individual threat and starts treating him as a prototype. That distinction matters. A single monster can be slain. A species built for domination requires something else entirely. Jin-Woo understands this better than anyone. He has fought monarchs who commanded armies, gods who ruled concepts, enemies who returned no matter how many times they were killed. Viltrumites are different. They don't resurrect. They don't evolve through magic. They persist through brutal natural selection, refining themselves until weakness no longer exists. That makes them dangerous. Jin-Woo begins preparing not for Nolan, but for the inevitable arrival of more like him. He observes how Nolan tests Earth's defenses, how little effort he expends to dismantle resistance. Military strikes fail before they register. Superpowered interventions end with broken bodies and unanswered questions. The planet is being conditioned, taught that fighting back is pointless. From the shadows of a devastated city, Jin-Woo watches Nolan stand amid ruins unchallenged. The Viltrumite isn't celebrating. He's assessing. Jin-Woo meets his gaze from a distance, hidden but unafraid. For a brief moment, something passes between them. Recognition. Predators sense rivals instinctively. Jin-Woo turns away first, not out of fear, but intent. This isn't a fight to be rushed. The Viltrumite problem won't be solved with power alone. It will require death on a scale this universe has never experienced. Jin-Woo's strategy begins with observation, the way a chess master studies an opponent several moves ahead. Every Viltrumite movement is precise, the economy perfected over centuries. Every strike calculated to minimize wasted energy. Every landing measured to inflict maximum damage without overextension. There's no recklessness here, no posturing for effect. The Viltrumites don't perform, they dominate. And that domination is methodical, relentless, and merciless. Jin-Woo studies their physiology, cataloging the ways their bodies absorb punishment, recover, and retaliate. It's terrifying in its simplicity. No shields, no magic, no tricks. Pure biology, honed for conquest. In his own world, he could summon armies, manipulate death, twist shadows into weapons of destruction. Here, death is a tool. But Viltrumites bend it differently. A wound doesn't stop them. Pain doesn't deter them. Time doesn't age them. They endure, adapt, and strike again, always stronger, always calculating the next move. This is where Jin-Woo's mind sharpens. He doesn't need to rush into battle. The Viltrumites are predictable in their perfection. Every attack leaves residue. Every motion carries intent. He begins building simulations in his mind, not magical or mechanical, but tactical, strategic, psychological. Where are their weak points? How do they react to numbers, to surprise, to shadows that strike without presence? How does one combat an enemy that can survive anything, but can still be manipulated? Jin-Woo starts recruiting silently. He moves among Earth's remnants with caution, claiming fallen combatants, extracting shadows from those the Viltrumites overlook. Each shadow is trained, adapted to Earth's harsh rules, adjusted to mimic natural strength instead of magical might. He grows an army, not of mindless followers, but of extensions of his will, adaptive, intelligent, deadly. These shadows will be his edge against a species that cannot be killed by conventional means. Mark Grayson becomes another variable, though Jin-Woo does not approach him directly. He watches Mark struggle to reconcile humanity with Viltrumite strength, noticing how frustration and morality often slow the young hero down. Jin-Woo catalogs every misstep, every hesitation, knowing that the right push at the right moment could turn potential into advantage. He doesn't need an ally yet. He needs awareness. And for the first time, Mark becomes part of a larger calculation, rather than the center of the world. Cities crumble beneath training battles, under the occasional intervention of Nolan testing limits, and Jin-Woo's army grows silently, unseen. Every death, every crack in the ground, every human tragedy becomes a lesson. Shadows that once existed only to fight monsters now learn to anticipate superhuman tactics, to respond before movement is complete, to become more than the sum of their parts. Jin-Woo is patient. The Viltrumite problem cannot be solved with raw force. It requires preparation, exploitation, and a willingness to embrace inevitability. And he is more than willing. Jin-Woo doesn't merely wait, he adapts. The shadows he commands are no longer extensions of his will alone. They are students, apprentices, scouts. Each fallen being absorbed teaches him more about this universe, more about Viltrumite physiology, psychology, and tactics, how fast they react to surprise, how they calculate trajectory, how they perceive threats. Every detail is catalogued meticulously, ingrained into both Jin-Woo's mind and the instincts of his army. By the time confrontation comes, he won't be entering blind. He will be entering with knowledge honed sharper than any blade. He studies Nolan again, this time through reports of his off-world interventions. Even across planetary distances, Jin-Woo can feel the pressure of a Viltrumite at full stride, the way cities bend before him, how resistance fractures long before contact. The casual way Nolan destroys military formations without breaking us a sweat fascinates Jin-Woo. This is no ordinary opponent. Yet fascination does not become fear. It becomes a calculation. Observation breeds strategy, and strategy above all is Jin-Woo's domain. Mark Grayson remains a variable he cannot ignore. Jin-Woo doesn't approach him directly, there is no need yet, but he watches. He sees Mark pushed to extremes, repeatedly forced to confront the cost of being half Viltrumite in a world unprepared for him. Bloodied, exhausted, struggling to reconcile instinct with morality, Mark is powerful, yes, but unrefined. And like any resource, raw power is useless without direction. Jin-Woo imagines guiding that power, subtly influencing Mark without revealing his hand, shaping potential without drawing attention. In a way, the boy is a puzzle piece waiting to complete a much larger design. In the city scarred by previous battles, Jin-Woo begins moving in ways the humans cannot perceive. His shadows spread like veins through the urban ruins, taking root in forgotten alleys, abandoned buildings, and underground tunnels. They patrol silently, gathering data on combat patterns, local hero movements, and potential environmental advantages. When the next Viltrumite arrives, Jin-Woo's army will not fight blindly. They will anticipate, adapt, and exploit with surgical precision. Then there's the psychological edge. Nolan and the other Viltrumites have been trained to dominate, to suppress fear, to act decisively. But even the strongest have blind spots. Patterns repeated too often, confidence born of superiority, subtle hesitations in unfamiliar scenarios. These are all observable, exploitable weaknesses. Jin-Woo catalogs them without emotion. Patience, he reminds himself, is more powerful than arrogance. While Viltrumites are a force of inevitability, he is the variable they cannot predict. For days, weeks, months, Jin-Woo continues this silent study, each day a layer of preparation, each observation another piece in a puzzle no one else even knows exists. He becomes a ghost on Earth, a shadow watching the strongest heroes, the weakest humans, and the Viltrumites who think themselves untouchable. He learns timing, rhythm, and limits, and slowly, meticulously, he begins to see the solution to a problem that seems impossible. How to confront beings whose strength bends the rules of mortality itself. By the time Nolan's next offensive approaches, the world will already have changed in ways it cannot perceive. Jin-Woo has not revealed himself, has not engaged, has not interfered. And yet every shadow he commands, every detail he has memorized, every human mistake he has observed, will converge in a single, unstoppable purpose. Because the Viltrumite problem is not just a battle of strength, it is a battle of inevitability. And Jin-Woo has already begun to rewrite the rules. Jin-Woo doesn't just wait for the Viltrumites to arrive. He prepares the battlefield itself. Every city block, every stretch of open sky, every ruined building becomes a calculated advantage. Shadows snake along streets, ready to respond at the speed of thought. Even the air feels heavier where he has been, as if the world itself anticipates the coming conflict. To the casual observer, nothing has changed. But for anyone watching closely, every abandoned rooftop, every cracked alleyway, every derelict subway tunnel is now a trap, a staging ground, a weapon. He studies how Viltrumites strike, economy of motion, explosive power, endurance beyond comprehension. He studies how they recover, how quickly they process trauma, how little restraint they employ when the world itself is expendable. Jin-Woo doesn't just adapt, he evolves a countermeasure. His shadows are trained to act like extensions of a natural predator, anticipating attacks, exploiting openings, striking where survival instincts cannot react fast enough. A single Viltrumite may shrug off bullets, lasers, bombs, even massed superhuman assaults, but a swarm that can anticipate, adapt, and manipulate reality itself? That is unprecedented. Mark Grayson remains a secondary concern, yet a vital one. Jin-Woo observes the young hero navigating morality, identity, and raw Viltrumite power. Bloodied fists and weary lungs reveal potential, yes, but also hesitation. Jin-Woo's mind catalogs every hesitation, every moment of doubt, every lapse in judgment. One nudge at the right time, one subtle shift, and the trajectory of Mark's growth could be altered, not for control, but for efficiency. A prepared ally in a war that will demand more than mere heroism. He tests the limits of his shadows, sending them into situations where Viltrumite senses might detect them. They adapt. They survive. They learn. Each shadow is an experiment, each engagement a rehearsal for the inevitable encounter. And slowly, imperceptibly, Jin-Woo begins to see patterns in the Viltrumites' behavior, the rhythm of their assaults, the limits of their patience. They are powerful beyond imagination, but they are not infinite. They are capable, but predictable. And predictability is vulnerability. The first confrontation is inevitable. Jin-Woo feels it like a storm brewing on the horizon, unseen yet unavoidable. Earth's strongest defenders, including Mark, will be forced to face the full might of the Viltrumite Empire. And when that happens, Jin-Woo will not fight as a hero or even as an invader. He will fight as a force of inevitability, turning every misstep, every oversight, every human frailty into a weapon. The battlefield will become a chessboard, and every piece, every pawn, every shadow will play its part perfectly. By the time the Viltrumites descend, Jin-Woo's preparation will have reached its apex. Shadows pulse beneath the cities, armies wait unseen, and strategies span continents. Death here is not random. It is anticipated, directed, precise. The Viltrumite problem is no longer a mystery. It is a challenge. And challenges for Sung Jin-Woo are opportunities. As he watches Nolan soar across the skies, the wind tearing at debris below, Jin-Woo allows himself a faint, almost imperceptible smile. The Viltrumites are the strongest force he has yet encountered, but strength without foresight is nothing. And foresight, patience, and adaptation, these are his allies. In the quiet of the night, shadows writhe, waiting for a war that the universe has never seen. Jin-Woo is ready. The Viltrumite problem is no longer insurmountable. It is inevitable. And the Shadow Monarch is about to prove that even the strongest can fall when death itself has a mind of its own. The city is quiet, deceptively quiet. Streets that were moments ago filled with chaos now lie in a tense, eerie stillness, the aftermath of destruction pressing against every corner. Mark Grayson floats above the wreckage, fists clenched, chest heaving, eyes scanning for the next threat. Every fiber of him screams that something is off, that danger lingers where he cannot see it. He's fought villains, monsters, even threats that have torn planets apart, but tonight, unease gnaws at him in a way he can't place. From the shadows of a partially collapsed skyscraper, Jin-Woo watches silently, his cloak blending perfectly with the darkness. He doesn't announce himself with a show of force. He doesn't strike or even move openly. He merely observes, studying Mark with the same calculated patience he has used for every being he has ever encountered. This isn't a test of strength. It's an introduction to inevitability, to survival under conditions that Mark cannot yet comprehend. Mark notices the absence first, the subtle shift in the shadows, the way the wind seems to bend slightly as if something moves within it. His eyes narrow, scanning the alleys and rooftops, instincts honed from years of fighting monsters warning him of a presence far beyond normal detection. And then he feels it, a weight, oppressive yet invisible. Something watches him, something ancient, something that does not fear confrontation. Mark hovers tens of feet above the street, muscles tense, trying to reconcile the feeling with what his eyes cannot see. Jin-Woo steps forward just enough for the faintest ripple to move across the shadows, and Mark's head snaps in that direction. But there is nothing visible. The air is still, the streets are empty, and yet instinct screams at Mark, do not underestimate this. This is not a regular threat. This is a predator, calculating, unrelenting, and unseen. His heart rate quickens, not from fear alone, but from recognition. He has faced powerful beings before, but this is different. Something about the presence resonates in his very core. The first words are not spoken aloud. Jin-Woo doesn't need them. His reputation, his aura, even unseen, communicates dominance. Mark senses it, instinctively comparing it to every opponent he has faced, from interstellar conquerors to planetary destroyers. Nothing fits. This is not raw power alone. It is intent, strategy, and certainty wrapped into a single, unyielding form. He senses that every action this being could take would be precise, inevitable, and lethal. Mark decides to test the waters. He lands softly on a crumbling rooftop, every sense alert. "Who's there?" he calls out, voice strong but carrying a hint of caution. The wind shifts around him. Shadows ripple. No answer. And then from the darkness, a faint figure steps forward, not rushing, not striking, but walking with the inevitability of a force that will not be denied. Jin-Woo stops just a few meters away, hooded and silent, eyes faintly glowing. Mark studies him, searching for a threat, a weakness, any sign that this is an opponent he can read. Nothing. Every instinct screams at him. This is a being unlike any other, and every mistake will cost him more than his life. "Mark Grayson," Jin-Woo's voice finally breaks the silence, low and calm, carrying the weight of certainty. Mark flinches slightly at the sound, not because it is loud, but because it is deliberate. Every syllable is measured, every pause intentional. "You are strong, but you do not yet understand power." Mark straightens, fists ready, hovering in place. "Who? What are you?" he asks, voice steady despite the rising tension. He doesn't recognize the fear that pricks at the edge of his mind, the subtle realization that he may have just met someone whose existence rewrites the rules he's always known. Jin-Woo steps closer, but not threateningly. He studies Mark, noting posture, breathing, muscle tension, and even the flicker of doubt in his expression. "I am something that observes consequences," he says finally, each word deliberate, almost philosophical. "Something that does not forgive mistakes, something that turns inevitability into strength." Mark's fists relax slightly, though His eyes never leave the cloaked figure. He's powerful, but uncertainty gnaws at him. He has fought beings who could shatter continents with a single blow. He has survived interstellar threats, but the presence in front of him is different. It doesn't radiate strength. It defines it. And Mark instinctively knows that measuring it, challenging it, or underestimating it could be fatal. For Jin-Woo, this is not a battle of fists. It is a demonstration, a lesson, and an assessment all in one. Mark represents potential, raw but unrefined, and Jin-Woo sees clearly how it could be honed or broken. Yet he does not act violently, not yet. Observation comes first, influence comes second, and only if necessary will confrontation follow. The night stretches between them, tense but silent, filled with the weight of unspoken truths. Shadows writhe at Jin-Woo's command, hinting at latent power without revealing it fully. Mark senses the movement, not tangible, not solid, but unmistakable. Every instinct screams that he is not dealing with an ordinary opponent. Then Jin-Woo speaks again. The universe you know is fragile. Your strength, admirable, yet flawed. You survive because you are fast, because you are strong, because you endure. But endurance alone is not enough. Strength without comprehension is meaningless. Mark listens, fists still ready, mind racing. He has faced gods, villains, and monsters. He has survived impossible odds, and yet every word strikes him with the quiet force of inevitability. This is no mere teacher, no ordinary observer. This is someone or something that shapes survival itself. Jin-Woo takes a final step forward, the shadows around him deepening, almost stretching toward Mark like fingers of intent. I am not here to kill you yet, he says softly, but to show you what inevitability looks like. Watch closely, learn quickly. The battle's coming. Will not forgive weakness. Mark exhales slowly, hovering tens of feet above the shattered streets, heart pounding, mind racing. He doesn't know his limits. He doesn't know its intentions, and he cannot predict its next move. All he knows is that the King of Death stands before him, and nothing will ever feel the same again. Mark hovers there, trying to process the magnitude of what he's facing. He's faced countless foes who could destroy entire cities, yet none of them made him feel this way. None of them carried inevitability with them like a physical weight pressing against the air. Every fiber of his being screams caution. Every instinct whispers to retreat, yet he cannot move. Not because he's trapped, but because he understands, on a level deeper than reason, that this is a confrontation of observation, not violence. One wrong move, one premature strike, could reveal a depth of power he cannot yet comprehend. Jin-Woo watches quietly, his presence a silent pressure, testing Mark's limits not with attacks, but with proximity. The young hero shifts slightly, fists tightening, but even the smallest motions are measured. Jin-Woo can see the calculations behind Mark's thoughts, the rapid weighing of risk, the instinctive consideration of counterattack, the subtle internal debate about whether to strike first or wait. It is fascinating, and it confirms something he already suspected. Mark is powerful, yes, but inexperienced, untempered by the kind of lethal calculation that defines true dominance. Mark's mind races as he tries to reconcile what he sees with what he knows. Jin-Woo is not moving fast, not striking, but the sense of danger is absolute. No flurry of punches, no display of raw strength, no explosions or energy waves are necessary. The King of Death does not need to act. Mark realizes instinctively that Jin-Woo could end this encounter at any moment. Yet the man, or being, chooses not to. That choice carries weight. It's not mercy. It's teaching, testing, a lesson in control that Mark has never truly understood. For Jin-Woo, influence comes before confrontation. He does not need Mark's strength. He needs Mark's understanding of inevitability, how power must be tempered by calculation, how survival requires anticipation, how even the strongest are vulnerable when they lack comprehension. Shadows ripple subtly at his command, faint but perceptible, not attacking, not threatening, but demonstrating that even invisibility is under his control. Every movement, every silence communicates without words. Presence itself is power. Mark tries to respond verbally, seeking to assert control, to test boundaries. What are you? Are you a villain? A hero? What do you want? His voice is steady, but his chest heaves with adrenaline. Jin-Woo does not answer immediately. He allows the questions to linger, to echo. It is another test, another probe into Mark's mind. Hesitation, confusion, curiosity. All responses are noted, catalogued, analyzed. Finally, Jin-Woo speaks, each word deliberate, calm and deliberate. I am what happens when consequences are inevitable. I am the force that waits while the world kills itself. I am neither hero nor villain. I am observation, calculation, and inevitability made flesh. And you, Mark Grayson, are standing on the edge of understanding that survival is not strength alone. Mark absorbs the words, heart pounding, mind racing. He's readied for enemies, monsters, interstellar threats, but he has never been spoken to like this. It is not intimidation in the traditional sense. It is enlightening, fear intertwined with comprehension. The realization that he is not yet prepared for what lies ahead, that power alone is meaningless without understanding, and that even his Viltrumite strength is not absolute. The night stretches on, the air thick with unspoken tension. Shadows move subtly at Jin-Woo's will, demonstrating control without confrontation. Mark hovers tens of feet above the broken streets, absorbing, analyzing, yet unable to relax. The King of Death has shown him that raw power is meaningless without foresight, that anticipation and patience are weapons as deadly as any fist or blast, that mistakes in judgment, hesitation, or underestimation could mean more than just failure. They could mean death. Jin-Woo takes a step back into the darkness, allowing the shadows to merge seamlessly with the night. Learn this, he says softly, almost a whisper, yet carrying unmistakable weight. Power is nothing without comprehension. Strength is meaningless without foresight. And survival is not given. It is claimed. Mark's gaze lingers on the figure as he disappears into the shadows, leaving nothing behind but presence, anticipation, and the quiet certainty that the world has shifted irrevocably. Nothing will ever feel the same again. Mark hovers in silence, still processing the encounter. The city below him echoing with distant sirens and the aftermath of destruction. His mind races faster than his body could ever move, replaying every subtle movement, every pause, every imperceptible ripple of shadow he sensed. Jin-Woo didn't strike, didn't threaten overtly, yet Mark feels the full weight of the encounter, like a force pressing against the very limits of his perception. He knows instinctively that he has just met someone, or something, that could end him with a thought, and yet chooses not to. The restraint itself is a lesson, and Mark cannot ignore it. The young hero's Viltrumite instincts kick in, pushing him to test boundaries. He moves closer, hovering just above the rooftop where Jin-Woo had stood moments before. His eyes sweep every inch of darkness, searching for a sign, a clue, a weakness, but finds none. Every shadow seems alive, yet nothing moves without intent. Mark clenches his fists, floating tens of feet above the ground, and for the first time questions whether raw power is enough. Every instinct tells him he is stronger than most beings on Earth, but here, strength is irrelevant. Jin-Woo reappears subtly, not in front of Mark, but in his peripheral vision, as if he has no need to be seen directly. The shadows ripple softly, drawing Mark's attention without overt action. It is a display of presence, of control, of inevitability. Jin-Woo's movements are deliberate, each one conveying confidence and absolute mastery. You fight to protect, he says, voice calm, measured, almost philosophical. You fight to survive, but you do not yet understand the weight of inevitability. Strength alone will not save you. Comprehension will. Observation will. Calculation will. Mark's mind spins. He has faced threats that could destroy continents, faced enemies who shattered planets, yet none of them forced him to confront the limits of his own understanding. He senses the invisible pressure of Jin-Woo's presence, the way shadows obey instinctively, the subtle command that bends even space around him. It is unnerving. Fear flickers, but alongside it comes clarity. This is not an enemy to be defeated by brute force. This is a teacher, but one who does not forgive mistakes. Jin-Woo steps closer now, just enough that Mark senses him without fully seeing him. His aura radiates inevitability, a calm that makes hesitation feel like a dangerous indulgence. Every battle you will face from now on, Jin-Woo continues, will demand more than reflexes, more than endurance. You will be tested not by the strength of your opponents, but by your ability to anticipate consequences, to recognize weakness, to adapt instantly. Failure is not an option when inevitability arrives. Mark hovers tens of feet above cracked streets, breathing steadily, heart pounding, mind racing. He has never encountered anyone who speaks like this, moves like this, or exists in this way. For the first time, he feels the weight of true mortality, not as a vague possibility, not as a distant threat, but as an immediate, undeniable reality. And yet he does not flee. He does not attack. He absorbs, analyzes, measures himself against a standard he cannot yet meet. The King of Death does not strike. He does not explain further. He simply watches, allowing Mark to confront his own limitations. Shadows move subtly around him, extensions of thought rather than limbs, demonstrating that awareness itself can be weaponized. Mark begins to understand. Power is meaningless without the perception. Speed is irrelevant without comprehension. Even Viltrumite might, without insight and patience, be vulnerable. Minutes stretch into silence. The city seems to hold its breath. Mark's eyes never leave Jin-Woo, tracking every subtle movement, every shift in weight, every ripple of shadow. He realizes that what he is facing is not just a person, not just a being, but a principle. Inevitability embodied. Strength alone cannot contend with it. Speed alone cannot outrun it. Only understanding, only adaptation, only the ability to act without hesitation can hope to survive its presence. Finally, Jin-Woo retreats into the shadows completely, disappearing without a sound, leaving nothing but the faint ripple of residual movement behind. Mark hovers alone above the broken streets, breathing steadily, mind racing, yet now tempered with a new awareness. He has glimpsed something beyond power, beyond skill, beyond the Viltrumite legacy he was born into. He has glimpsed inevitability itself. The encounter leaves him unsettled yet enlightened. Every instinct, every training regimen, every lesson he has learned until now feels insufficient. He now knows that the battles to come will require more than reflex, more than brute strength, more than courage. They will require insight, calculation, and an understanding of death itself. Mark Grayson has met the King of Death, and he will never be the same again. The city's night air is thick with anticipation, as if even the ruins themselves recognize the shift that has just occurred. Mark hovers above the streets, chest heaving, mind racing, but slowly a new kind of focus settles over him. The fear, the uncertainty, the instinctive tension, they remain, but they are tempered by understanding. He has glimpsed something beyond brute strength, beyond Viltrumite superiority, beyond anything he thought possible. Jin-Woo's presence, even in absence, has rewritten the rules he has always trusted. Jin-Woo observes silently from the shadows, letting the young hero process the encounter fully. He doesn't need to strike to teach. The lesson has already begun. Mark's mind, trained for combat and heroism, is now grappling with inevitability. Every instinct he has relied upon is being recalibrated. Speed, strength, endurance, they are not enough. Observation, adaptation, calculation, these are the weapons he must now wield. Jin-Woo does not push, does not command. He simply exists, and the weight of that existence imprints itself onto Mark. Minutes pass, but in those minutes, something profound happens. Mark begins to analyze his own patterns, his own assumptions. He reviews past battles, recalling every moment when instinct alone carried him through, every time he relied on raw power without foresight, every encounter where hesitation or overconfidence nearly cost him dearly. For the first time, he sees clearly how vulnerable he has been, not because of enemies stronger than him, but because of limitations within himself. Jin-Woo's presence has forced this realization, not through violence, but through undeniable authority. Then, almost imperceptibly, Jin-Woo moves closer, not as a threat, but as a guide. Shadows ripple around him, hinting at control, at the ability to shape reality without touching it. Mark notices the subtle shifts, feels the quiet pressure of unseen forces, and instinctively tests them. He throws a punch into nothing, watching as the shadows flinch, recoil, and reorient themselves around him. It is a small interaction, but for Mark, it is revelatory. He begins to understand that power in this universe is not merely physical. It is environmental, psychological, strategic. Every movement, every decision, every hesitation carries weight far beyond what he has known. Jin-Woo speaks again, his voice calm, deliberate, carrying the quiet certainty of one who has faced death and commanded it. Power is meaningless without understanding. Strength is meaningless without foresight. Survival is not a right. It is earned through calculation, patience, and adaptation. You will face beings stronger than yourself. You will confront consequences you cannot yet imagine. And when that time comes, hesitation will be fatal. Mark absorbs the words, each syllable etching itself into his mind. He hovers tens of feet above the broken streets, fists clenched, yet a new clarity guides him. He begins to see connections he had overlooked, patterns in his own thought, vulnerabilities in both himself and the world around him. For the first time, he realizes that true power is not just the ability to strike harder or faster. It is the ability to act decisively, to anticipate, to exploit inevitability itself. Jin-Woo steps back into the shadows, letting darkness swallow him completely, leaving no trace of presence but the lingering pressure, the unspoken lesson, and the undeniable sense that everything has changed. Mark floats alone, eyes scanning the ruined city below, heart racing, mind recalibrating. The encounter has left him unsettled but enlightened. Every instinct, every skill, every lesson he has learned until now feels insufficient. He now knows that the battles to come will demand more than reflex, more than strength, more than courage. They will demand comprehension, strategy, and an understanding of death itself. Mark Grayson has met the King of Death. The Viltrumites may descend. The planet may tremble. But Mark will never approach a battle the same way again. He has glimpsed inevitability, and the world as he knew it has changed forever. The sky above Earth is a canvas of chaos. Clouds churn unnaturally, torn by the shock waves of combat, while meteoric streaks mark the arrival of Viltrumite reinforcements from orbit. Cities below are shadows of their former selves, streets fractured, buildings crumbled, and the remnants of fallen heroes scattered like chess pieces in a game they never agreed to play. Mark Grayson hovers above it all, fists clenched, eyes narrowing as the scale of the threat becomes clear. Nolan leads the assault, his presence alone bending gravity and air, while lesser Viltrumites follow with precision, each strike measured to annihilate and intimidate in equal measure. From the shadows of a ruined high-rise, Jin-Woo watches silently, his cloak blending with the night, eyes glowing faintly with the calm inevitability that has become his signature. The King of Death does not rush into battle, not yet. Observation comes first. Patterns, timing, and the predictability of even the strongest beings are analyzed meticulously. Every Viltrumite movement, every attack, every calculated pause is catalogued, absorbed, and prepared for. Jin-Woo's shadows pulse softly at his feet, a silent army that will respond faster than any Viltrumite can anticipate, moving as extensions of his mind rather than mere tools. Mark watches from above, already exhausted from the previous encounters, yet he feels something different this time. The tension in the air is not just from the approaching Viltrumite force. It's from Jin-Woo's presence, the unseen hand guiding him, shaping the battlefield, even before the first strike lands. Mark's instincts scream caution, but for the first time he recognizes the contours of inevitability, the invisible web of strategy woven around him. He is not alone. He is being guided, shaped and protected, not by raw power alone, but by intellect and precision that dwarfs even Viltrumite instincts. The first clash erupts without ceremony. A Viltrumite strikes toward a collapsing skyscraper, intending to flatten everything in its path. But Jin-Woo anticipates the motion, shadows rippling outward, subtly shifting debris and displacing energy to buffer the strike. Mark barely notices the correction, but it saves lives. Another Viltrumite descends to intercept, aiming for Mark himself, but is met with shadows that act faster than reflex, constricting, pulling, and disorienting with surgical precision. The King of Death does not strike directly. He orchestrates, manipulates, and bends inevitability itself into a weapon. Mark begins to understand the rhythm of the battlefield, the subtle cues that betray even Viltrumite confidence. He strikes with clarity, combining raw Viltrumite might with lessons learned from observation. Each punch, each maneuver is informed not just by instinct, but by strategy, by anticipation, by the faint but undeniable guidance that Jin-Woo's presence imposes. The Viltrumites are powerful beyond imagination, yet they begin to realize that raw strength is insufficient when confronted with calculated inevitability. Jin-Woo moves silently through the shadows of crumbling buildings, unseen, untouchable, yet everywhere at once. His army of shadows responds with perfect synchronization, striking, restraining, and manipulating without hesitation. The Viltrumites attempt to adapt, their centuries of combat experience struggling against a force that bends the rules they have always relied upon. Each mistake, each miscalculation is magnified, exploited, and redirected. Death is no longer merely destructive. It becomes a tool, a weapon, a precise instrument of strategy. Even Nolan, the apex predator of the Viltrumites, begins to sense the difference. His strikes are calculated, yet Jin-Woo predicts, counters, and adapts faster than expected. Shadows constrict around limbs mid-swing, redirecting force. Environmental hazards are subtly manipulated, turning buildings, rubble, and even wind currents into instruments of tactical advantage. Mark fights alongside, combining raw Viltrumite power with strategic insight. He moves faster, strikes smarter, anticipates more. And though he is only half-trained in this method of combat, even he begins to feel the tide of battle turning subtly in ways no brute force could achieve. The war escalates rapidly. Cities fracture under the combined might of Viltrumite assault and defensive improvisation. Energy clashes ripple through the atmosphere, superhuman speed and strength colliding with precision manipulation of shadows. Civilians are evacuated through corridors subtly shaped by Jin-Woo's army, moved without detection, protected without their knowledge. Every battle, every strike, every counterattack is orchestrated to wear down the Viltrumites, to exploit the gaps in their predictability, to turn arrogance into vulnerability. Jin-Woo observes Mark, guiding subtly, silently nudging decisions without revealing his own presence. The young hero begins to act with clarity, striking at the right moments, retreating when necessary, exploiting openings that even centuries of Viltrumite combat experience cannot fully account for. The rhythm of battle shifts. It is no longer a fight of overwhelming power. It is a war of calculation, adaptation, and inevitability. From above, the Viltrumite forces begin to notice that their strikes are anticipated, that their movements are manipulated before they even commit. Frustration begins to replace confidence. A species that relied on brute strength, speed, and endurance finds itself outmaneuvered, outthought, and slowly outmatched, not in raw power, but in strategy, observation, and control. The first cracks appear in the Viltrumite front lines. Even minor miscalculations become deadly. Shadows strike precisely where instinct cannot respond. Debris manipulates the battlefield with near-prescient timing, and Mark's strikes, informed by guidance he cannot fully perceive, begin to exact measurable damage. Jin-Woo's presence is everywhere, yet nowhere, shaping the battlefield, orchestrating chaos with the precision of a master tactician. The Viltrumites roar in frustration as they realize that raw strength alone is failing. Their centuries of dominance, their perfected instincts, even their inhuman durability, all of it is being countered by forces they cannot fully perceive. Jin-Woo remains hidden in the shadows, orchestrating every move with precision, a silent conductor of chaos, while Mark acts as the visible anchor of hope and offense. Every strike Mark delivers now is calculated, every maneuver informed by subtle guidance he doesn't yet understand, every evasive action choreographed by a presence he can feel but not see. The battlefield becomes a living entity. Shadows twist, extend, and contract at Jin-Woo's command, forming barriers, restraining limbs, manipulating debris, and redirecting attacks. A Viltrumite charges at Mark with supersonic speed, intending to end him before the subtle pressure of guidance can take hold. But the shadows respond first, constricting mid-flight, shifting the momentum, and sending the attacker hurtling into a building with precise force. Mark seizes the opportunity instantly, striking with full Viltrumite power, shattering bones he could never have reached alone. Cities crumble under the escalating confrontation. Streets split, glass rains from skyscrapers, and air pressure fluctuations create turbulence that even Viltrumites feel in their chest. Yet through all the chaos, Jin-Woo's army of shadows maintains cohesion. Each shadow operates with autonomy yet perfect synchronization, filling gaps, exploiting weaknesses, and turning the battlefield into a dynamic network of traps and countermeasures. The Viltrumites find themselves reacting, always a step behind, unable to anticipate the invisible hand that manipulates outcomes before they occur. Mark begins to adapt in real time, learning to anticipate not just the Viltrumites' movements, but the subtle cues Jin-Woo leaves behind. Every ripple in the shadows, every fleeting shift in debris, every imperceptible change in air pressure becomes data for him to interpret. His strikes become sharper, his evasion smoother, his awareness heightened. What once relied purely on instinct and raw power now incorporates strategy, foresight, and adaptability. Even a young hero born with Viltrumite might is starting to fight like a predator guided by inevitability itself. Jin-Woo watches each engagement with analytical detachment. He does not rush. He does not strike directly. The shadows themselves are lethal enough, but he is patient, waiting for the perfect moments to exploit. His mind runs simulations at a speed no human or Viltrumite could match, adjusting his tactics instantly as new variables emerge. A Viltrumite strike is anticipated, countered, and turned against them before their motion is complete. Environmental hazards are used with precision, collapsing rooftops and streets exactly where needed, shaping destruction into advantage rather than chaos. Nolan, observing the battlefield from above, begins to grasp that the situation is not what it appears. He moves with deliberate restraint, testing the limits of the enemy, but every test meets resistance, every engagement subtly foiled. The young heroes, the remnants of human resistance, and shadows operate in a synchronized web that even he cannot immediately penetrate. Frustration flickers in his expression for the first time in centuries. This is not a physical battle he can dominate. This is a war of anticipation, adaptation, and manipulation. And the opponent orchestrating it is unseen, untouchable, inevitable. Mark strikes again, connecting with a Viltrumite in mid-flight and throwing him into a skyscraper. The impact reverberates across the city, a tremor that marks the first serious damage the invaders have suffered. For the first time, the Viltrumites realize their attacks are not unopposed. They are anticipated, exploited, and countered. Fear, a concept they rarely experience, begins to creep into their consciousness. Even the strongest instincts falter when met with strategy that cannot be sensed directly. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo continues to refine the battlefield. Shadows coil around open streets, constricting paths of retreat and redirecting attacks. Collapsed buildings become temporary fortresses or improvised weapons, manipulated with subtle precision to aid mark or block enemy advancement. Every move is a lesson in control, a demonstration that raw strength alone cannot win a war. Even the Viltrumites, confident and experienced, are being forced to adapt, to react to an unseen mastermind orchestrating destruction and defense in equal measure. The tide begins to shift. Individual Viltrumites fall, caught in traps, miscalculating against forces they cannot perceive. Even those trained for centuries to conquer planets are now casualties of precision, foresight, and inevitability. Mark realizes that the King of Death does not need to strive to dominate. His presence alone, his influence over shadows, his orchestration of the battlefield, ensures that even the strongest can be manipulated, restrained, and defeated without direct confrontation. The city trembles under the combined might of war and strategy. The Viltrumite forces, once confident in their dominance, are now fractured, disoriented, and increasingly desperate. The first cracks have turned into chasms, and Jin-Woo's careful orchestration ensures they widen with every passing second. Mark, guided subtly, fights with a precision he never possessed before, striking not with blind force, but with calculation informed by an unseen hand. The battlefield becomes a symphony of chaos and precision. Viltrumites, accustomed to facing planetary armies and apex predators, begin to recognize the pattern of defeat before it strikes. Every assault they launch is countered with invisible hands guiding the battlefield. Shadows twist around collapsing buildings, intercept attacks mid-air, and manipulate the environment to maximize disruption. Mark's strikes land with surgical precision, each blow amplified by subtle nudges he cannot consciously perceive. He begins moving not as a reactive fighter, but as a participant in an intricate preordained choreography, guided by Jin-Woo's presence, learning to think several moves ahead in real time. Even elite Viltrumite soldiers, the warriors trained for conquest over centuries, find themselves ensnared in traps they cannot detect. A skyscraper is weakened in precise locations so that when one charges through it, the floors collapse around them, redirecting kinetic energy back toward the attacker. Shadows constrict arms mid-swing, redirecting blows into unprepared opponents. Energy blasts are subtly manipulated mid-flight, redirected or diffused without the sender realizing it. Each defeat is a lesson in inevitability, and the Viltrumites, confident in their superiority, begin to hesitate, an emotion alien to their species and one that Jin-Woo exploits mercilessly. Mark begins to understand intuitively that this is not merely a battle of strength. He starts reading the battlefield differently, noticing small irregularities in motion, subtle shifts in air currents, the way debris moves almost consciously. With each passing moment, he synchronizes with the flow of inevitability Jin-Woo has created. He strikes at openings he previously would have ignored, evades attacks that once would have grazed him, and anticipates maneuvers that would have once caught him by surprise. His raw Viltrumite power is still the foundation, but strategy and perception now define his combat effectiveness. Nolan realizes that brute force alone will not dominate this fight. Even his centuries of experience cannot account for the invisible manipulations reshaping the battlefield. Each Viltrumite ally he directs falls to a combination of environmental traps, shadow assaults, and Mark's newfound precision. Every misstep is fatal, every hesitation magnified, and all the while Jin-Woo remains a ghost at the edges of perception, orchestrating outcomes without revealing himself directly. The apex predator is now forced to fight in a dimension he cannot predict. an environment where inevitability itself is weaponized against him. The intensity escalates. Entire city blocks collapse not randomly but deliberately, directed by Jin-Woo's shadows to maximize enemy vulnerability and protect civilians without their knowledge. Viltrumites attempt to coordinate, but even their advanced instincts struggle against a network that operates faster than thought, manipulating perception, predicting reactions, and turning every action against them. Mark, guided subtly, becomes a pivot point around which the battle revolves. His raw power, combined with anticipation and guidance, begins to carve a path of disruption through the Viltrumite ranks. The first major casualties among the elite Viltrumites occur in rapid succession. One is thrown into a skyscraper wall by shadows constricting midair. Another is redirected into a collapsing bridge caught between precision-engineered hazards. Each death reinforces the lesson. No matter how strong, no matter how fast, no Viltrumite can escape a battlefield orchestrated with foresight, precision, and inevitability. Panic begins to ripple through their ranks. Confusion, a concept foreign to their species, starts to take root. Mark begins to fully adapt to the flow, understanding instinctively when to strike and when to retreat, how to synchronize with the unseen hand guiding him. Every movement feels faster, sharper, more deliberate. The lessons Jin-Woo instills are no longer abstract. They are tangible in the rhythm of combat. Even against superhuman foes, Mark begins to feel a semblance of control, a strategic advantage that pure Viltrumite strength could never provide. Jin-Woo remains at the center of observation, analyzing, orchestrating, anticipating every move. He directs shadows subtly, ensuring Mark remains protected, yet allowing him freedom to adapt and grow. The battle has become a war of minds as much as bodies, calculation against instinct, anticipation against reaction, inevitability against brute force. The Viltrumites' centuries of dominance begin to crumble, not from raw power, but from the impossibility of countering a strategy they cannot see. The city trembles under the escalating conflict, skyscrapers tilting, streets splitting, and debris flying in chaotic yet controlled patterns. Even civilian evacuations, previously impossible under such chaos, are guided by Jin-Woo's subtle orchestration. The battlefield is alive, not with chance, but with design. Every destruction is purposeful, every failure anticipated, every strike countered before it can manifest fully. The Viltrumite Empire has encountered something it never expected, a war planned not by armies, but by inevitability itself. The tide of battle has shifted decisively. Viltrumites, once confident in their supremacy, are faltering. Their assaults are anticipated, manipulated, and turned back on them. Mark has become more than a warrior. He has become a conductor of guided chaos, a vessel through which Jin-Woo's strategy manifests in reality. And above it all, the King of Death observes, calculating, directing, patient, allowing inevitability to unfold perfectly while keeping himself untouchable, untangled, and unchallenged. The Viltrumites are reeling. Their centuries of dominance, their unmatched speed and strength, their unyielding confidence, all of it is failing against an opponent they cannot see, cannot anticipate, and cannot outmatch in strategy. Buildings crumble with precision rather than chaos. Debris becomes a weapon of orchestration, and shadows strike faster than even the most advanced Viltrumite reflexes. Every attack they launch is subtly manipulated, every maneuver exploited, every instinct turned against them. Panic, alien and corrosive, spreads through their ranks. Even Nolan, the apex predator of their species, senses that the tide is turning in ways he cannot fully comprehend. Mark Grayson strikes with lethal efficiency, combining his raw Viltrumite might with the lessons gleaned from Jin-Woo's presence. Every punch lands at the perfect angle. Every maneuver anticipates counterattacks. Every retreat is timed with precision. For the first time in his life, Mark feels more than power. He feels understanding, foresight, and control. He begins to move not just reactively, but proactively, predicting enemy behavior in ways he never thought possible. Each strike is devastating, each counter flawless, and each success reinforces the invisible guidance shaping the battlefield. Jin-Woo moves like a phantom through the chaos, never revealing himself directly, yet his influence is absolute. Shadows coil around incoming strikes, constrict enemy limbs mid-flight, redirect destructive energy, and manipulate the terrain itself to favor Mark and protect civilians. His army of shadows acts as extensions of his will, precise, lethal, and omnipresent. Even elite Viltrumites, trained for millennia to dominate, cannot anticipate the invisible hand shaping their every misstep. The battle escalates to a crescendo. Entire city blocks collapse in calculated precision, channeling the Viltrumites into kill zones, while shadows immobilize or disorient their most powerful members. Nolan fights with unparalleled skill, but even he cannot contend with an opponent who predicts movement before it begins. Every attack he launches is countered before it reaches its target, every strike redirected into an opening that leaves him vulnerable. The apex predator of the Viltrumites realizes with rare clarity that he is being outmaneuvered not by strength, but by inevitability. Mark and Jin-Woo act in silent coordination. Mark's raw power demolishes enemies at critical moments, while Jin-Woo manipulates the battlefield, controlling the environment, the shadows, and the flow of combat with surgical precision. The synergy between human, half-Viltrumite and Shadow Monarch reaches a point where even the Viltrumite elite cannot recover. Fighters that once would have crushed continents fall to a combination of anticipation, manipulation, and calculated strikes. The Invincible Empire that thought nothing could challenge it is now fractured, broken, and retreating. Nolan's frustration becomes palpable. His eyes scan the battlefield, trying to locate the unseen mastermind orchestrating the chaos. Every instinct screams that he has underestimated something, someone beyond comprehension. He has fought the strongest beings in countless galaxies, yet this is different. Every move is anticipated, every advantage neutralized, every victory denied. Even his unparalleled speed and strength cannot overcome the inevitability of Jin-Woo's strategy. Finally, the Viltrumites are forced to retreat. Their formations collapse, their morale shattered, and their confidence in supremacy irreparably damaged. Mark hovers above the devastation, breathing heavily but steady, having understood at last the lessons Jin-Woo sought to teach. Raw strength alone is not victory. Anticipation, calculation, and adaptation define the outcome. Shadows retract, coiling back toward Jin-Woo, leaving the battlefield scarred yet under control. Jin-Woo emerges from the darkness, cloak flowing and aura calm, observing Mark's newfound mastery. No words are needed. The young hero understands. The King of Death has guided him not by force, but by inevitability, showing him the path from raw power to true comprehension. Together they have reshaped a battle that seemed hopeless, turning it into a lesson that even the mightiest can be defeated when strength meets foresight. As the dust settles, the ruined cities beneath them tell the story of a war the universe never prepared for. Civilians are safe, the Viltrumite threat neutralized for now, and Earth stands battered but unbroken. Mark floats silently, absorbing the magnitude of what has occurred. His strength has been tempered, his instincts sharpened, and his understanding expanded beyond anything he imagined. Jin-Woo, observing quietly, allows a faint, almost imperceptible smile. The Viltrumites were not defeated by brute force alone. They were defeated by strategy, inevitability, and preparation. And in the aftermath, a lesson remains clear. Power alone is nothing. True strength lies in comprehension, anticipation, and the ability to act decisively when the universe expects hesitation. The skies begin to clear, the shadows recede, and the world begins to breathe again. Mark looks to Jin-Woo, understanding without words the magnitude of their alliance, the lesson imparted, and the promise of battles yet to come. And as the night slowly fades into dawn, one truth remains. Earth will never face such a war unprepared again. The universe has learned a harsh lesson tonight. Strength is meaningless without foresight, and even the strongest can fall when inevitability itself is wielded as a weapon. Mark Grayson has survived but changed forever, and somewhere in the shadows, Sung Jin-Woo watches, waiting for the next challenge, guiding the future from the unseen corners of power and strategy. The war is over, but the story of the King of Death and Earth's defenders has only just begun.